Single Strike Urshifu Vmax makes Lugia V-Star the best deck in the format, and I'm tired of pretending like it doesn't. Hey, Nick from 9card TCG, and today I'm going to explain to you, I'm going to make my case for why Single Strike Urshifu Vmax legitimately makes Lugia the best deck in the game. Is this a little biased? Yeah, probably, but yeah, here we are. We're gonna go straight to it. We're gonna look at two different websites: limitlesstcg.com and trainerhill.com, where we're gonna get all the information needed to make these claims. Links to both of those in the video description. Let's get straight to it. This is the current skeleton list for Lugia decks. If you wanted to play Lugia and you didn't know where to start, this is where you go. And I want to drag your attention to the Single Strike Urshifu Vmax in other common cards. It's played as a one-of in about 1 out of every 3 Lugia decks. That's not very high. 33% of Lugia decks playing Single Strike Urshifu. Why is this significant? Well, we're going to go take a look at some matchup data, and you'll see exactly why. Before we go any further, we have to talk about what Single Strike Urshifu Vmax even does, because I've been to multiple tournaments at this point where people are just unfamiliar with the card. One of those being a regionals, but anyway, that's not the point. Single Strike Urshifu Vmax is a Stage 1 Vmax Pokemon, meaning it gives up 3 prizes. It's a fighting type Pokemon with 330 health, which is a lot of health. It has a psychic weakness, no resistance, and a retreat cost of 3. It has 2 attacks for 3 colorless energies. Beatdown does 100 damage. And the second, arguably more important attack is Gmax 1 Blow. For 3 fighting and a colorless energy, it does base 270. I say base because we're going to be able to increase that number, but we'll talk about that a little later. So, Gmax 1 Blow has some text underneath it, meaning it does something else. You have to discard all energy cards attached to the Urshifu Vmax, and then your attack ignores all effects and abilities on your opponent's active Pokemon. This is super, super important for a few matchups and why we want to include it in our deck. So, there's Single Strike Urshifu Vmax. That's what it does. Now let's talk about the meta and some of the matchups where this is super, super important. This is the current meta according to Trainer Hill, and there are a few filters that I applied. One, this is obviously standard format. It's a minimum of 30 players, and this is from April 24th to the time of recording, May 8th. I had a look, I didn't remember. So, what are the important matchups? Gardevoir, Lost Box, Goodra, Lugia decks, eventually Miraidon, Arceus, Giratina. Those are some of the important decks. Some of the other things we do have to keep an eye out for, especially after, say, Portland Regionals. Things like Inteleon Urshifu was being talked about a lot. Arceus Duraludon's always something you never want to take a loss to if you can avoid it. Kyurem, there's been some talk about Kyurem, apparently. These are all very low percentage decks, so we don't have to worry about them too much, but these are things that Urshifu can really help take advantage of. So really what I want to bring your attention to is the matchup spread for some of these decks. This is the matchup data, and we're going to obviously focus on Lugia Archeops. And the first deck we're going to look at is a matchup that if more decks played Single Strike Urshifu, they'd be winning. Arceus Duraludon. Lugia wins 26% of the time. That means Arceus Duraludon is winning so much. They are literally winning almost 75% of the time. However, Urshifu can flip that very easily. Why? Because nothing in Lugia can one-shot an Urshifu Vmax. However, Urshifu Vmax can one-shot everything in Lugia, including something like the Duraludon. So remember before I said that a third of the decks aren't playing either Duraludon or Urshifu? That means that 1/3 of those Lugia decks are going to instantly lose to a Duraludon Vmax because they have no answer. Sure, you could throw in another Duraludon. You could play your own Duraludon Vmax, but then it becomes who sets up first. Whoever gets that first attack is probably going to win. If you play Urshifu though, even if your opponent hits you, they hit you first. They do Gmax Pulverization, they hit you for 220, cool. Well, then you just Gmax 1 Blow for knockout. It doesn't matter anymore. So now, okay, fine. They come back and the next turn they knock out your Urshifu. But as long as they don't have another Duraludon set up, you're still able to then come in with a Tyranitar and KO pretty easily. You're able to come in with a Lugia and KO pretty easily. So I wouldn't worry about it too much with the Urshifu. What's another really bad matchup? Let's look at Goodra. Goodra Lost Box is so annoying for Lugia because Wrong Iron says that you take 80 less damage during your opponent's next turn. So that means that 270 Dragon Gooey Sad Snail is actually really hard to KO. And then they're hitting you for 200 damage with Wrong Iron, which is not nothing. That's going to two-shot all of your Pokemon no matter what. Throw a Choice Belt on there, and it's going to one-shot a lot of your Pokemon. However, you don't have a great way of dealing with it. The Duraludon's okay, but even 220 is not enough to KO. You're still 50 damage shy unless you can get a few extra Single Strike energies on there. However, Single Strike Urshifu says, we ignore that too, and we do a higher base. We do 270, which means we just knock out that Goodra no matter what. You ignore a V-Guard energy, you ignore Radiant Gardevoir, you ignore the Wrong Iron effect, and you do the perfect 270 to knock out that Goodra in a single hit. So now this 38% win rate is going to go up. Because now you can use your single prizes, you can use your Archeops and your Single Strike Yveltal, and the Lugia that you have to put in play to make this whole thing work. You use that beefy V-Star plus a few single prizes to deal with their Cramorants and their, if they for some reason play a Comfey or something like that. Then the Goodras become really easy with something like the Urshifu. You got enough Urn of Vitalities to recycle those Single Strike energies, and if you're smart and you split your Single Strike energy and your Impact energy, you're never gonna have a problem. What's another deck? Single Strike Urshifu can one-shot a Mew Vmax, even with resistance to the fighting type because of all the Single Strike energies that we have in play. So that's really cool. It can turn the Lost Box mirror more favorable because even a Tyranitar with 4 Single Strike energies is not one-shotting an Urshifu Vmax. In that case, in the mirror, the Duraludon is obviously the better choice, but two-thirds of Lugia players have wised up and learned that you have to play something to deal with the Duraludon. So they play Duraludon or Urshifu, which means you need something, and you might as well play the Urshifu because Urshifu can knock out Urshifu, Duraludon can't. What else? What else is in here? You already have a favored Lost Zone box, or Sablezard. You have a favored Lost Zone box decks because of the Single Strike Yveltal, all that kind of stuff. So like playing the Single Strike box works really, really well. Inteleon Urshifu, come on, it's not even close. It's not even close already, and people aren't playing the Urshifu. Now you throw the Urshifu, and then you're almost guaranteed to just auto win. What else? The Giratina Lost Box. It's the same exact thing. You can use the Urshifu and the Tyranitar to KO. So that means you use your Single Strike energies on the Tyranitar to do enough damage to one-shot a Giratina V-Star. And then you use the Urshifu Vmax to take your last 2 prizes with something like Gmax Moonblow. Now you don't want to put a 3-prize Vmax in front of a Lost Zone Giratina because they will Star Requiem. It's a thing they're going to do. But if you use it as your last 3 prizes to just KO, take that easy KO on a Vmax or something, or a V-Star, Giratina V-Star, it can work. Would I suggest putting the Urshifu in? No, probably not, but at that rate, you don't want the Duraludon either, so let's keep that in mind. Gardevoir Mewtwo, we're pretty neutral. Again, you just don't play the Urshifu, you just discard it. You have to worry about Echoing Horn, so maybe hang on to it until you know if they have an Echo Horn or not. Gardevoir, it's a tough matchup. It is, but between 2 Tyranitars and a Single Strike Yveltal, you should be okay. Plus, again, the Lugia you have to put into play, so should be okay in there. Arceus Giratina, this is a matchup that you can easily take. You knock out the Arceus, this is so easy with something like Beatdown, get a couple of Single Strike energies on there, that 100 and base damage, now you get 3 Single Strike energies on there, you're doing 160 times 2 is 320, enough to take the KO, even with the V-Guard energy in play, or on the Arceus V-Star, right, because that brings it to 310, we're doing 320, still enough. If they have a Radiant Gardevoir, it becomes a little bit different, but then you get the 4th Single Strike energy, and it doesn't matter anymore. So, that's something fun to consider. Do you just boss up the Giratina, or the Giratina's in play, Gmax 1 blow, goodbye, and that's 4 prizes. Okay, fine. Eventually they knock out the Urshifu, but then you use something like the Tyranitar to come in and clean up. Or you never even have to put an Urshifu V into play, honestly, for any of these matchups, because you can run Thornton. You're going to have a Lugia V, a Tyranitar, a Radiant Serena, something like that, a Luminion. Something's going to be in play, a basic Pokemon that you don't want to be in play, and then you can discard the Single Strike Urshifu, like the V, with something like an Ultra Ball, discard it earlier in the game with the research or whatever, and then play Thornton, turn whatever basic you don't want in play into the V, evolve, powered up Gmax 1 Ball. You never have to put that 2 prize liability of an Urshifu V into play. You can use something like Thornton, which is something that I've personally put into my Lugia deck, and I do think can be really, really useful. So yeah, I just wanted to have a quick, just a quick chat about why Single Strike Urshifu makes this so much better. You have all of your single prize attackers for the Lost Zone decks. You have your Dark type attackers for Mew and Gardevoir. You have your Fighting type attackers for Miraidon and Arceus, or the normal type and electric types. And Single Strike Urshifu just ignores every effect and ability in the game, giving you instant one-hit KO on any Pokemon that's going to be in the active spot for your opponent. It is so powerful, and I encourage you to try it. That's going to do it for us today. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, found it informative. If you did, like, subscribe, comment, all that kind of stuff tells YouTube this is a good channel and other people should watch it. But let me know, what are you currently playing? What do you think about Urshifu? Obviously, I'm a little biased. I said at the beginning. But anyway, that's going to do us for today, and I'll see you next time.